What would you do if someone tried to take your own home from you while smiling to your face? That's exactly what happened to me. I bought my dream property, paid for it fair and square, followed every rule, and just wanted to be left alone. But some people, they can't stand the idea of not being in control. At first, it was petty HOA nonsense, fake violation notices, ridiculous complaints about my lawn, absurd fines over things that weren't even real issues. Annoying, but nothing I couldn't handle. If you're interested in dramatic stories about power, corruption, and the battle to protect the community, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any updates. 3 years ago, Michael Carter, a mechanical engineer, bought what I thought was my dream property, a gorgeous 10-acre land in the outskirts of Redwood Hills, Texas. It wasn't just the land that sold me. The real prize was an old, beautifully restored warehouse that I converted into my personal workshop and home office. For someone like me, who works on designing and fabricating custom car parts and metalwork, having a spacious, isolated area to work in was nothing short of perfect. I knew Redwood Hills had an HOA, but I was assured my property was on the outskirts and not fully under their jurisdiction. As long as I maintained the land and paid whatever minor fees they required, I would be left alone. It sounded reasonable. I paid my dues, kept my property clean, and minded my own damn business. For 2 peaceful years, I barely had any interaction with the HOA. And then she came. Her name was Linda Spencer, but everyone in the neighborhood whispered a different name, the HOA tyrant. The moment she got elected as the new HOA president, everything changed. This woman didn't just enforce rules. She created them out of thin air and then terrorized the entire neighborhood with them. People got fined for having the wrong shade of beige on their fences. Some were reported because their trash cans were visible from the street for more than 3 hours. And then, of course, she set her sights on me. One afternoon, I came home to find a neon pink violation notice taped to my mailbox. Unauthorized structure detected. Requires immediate compliance review. I stared at it baffled. My warehouse had been there long before this neighborhood even existed. Trying to be civil, I emailed Linda, attaching copies of my property deed and all the legal paperwork proving that my warehouse was grandfathered in when the neighborhood was developed. I thought that would be the end of it. Oh, how naive I was. 3 days later, Linda showed up at my door unannounced. She had a massive binder tucked under her arm, a plastic, fake-ass smile, and an attitude that screamed, "I own this neighborhood, and you're just living in it." "Mr. Carter," she said, skipping any basic human decency like a simple hello, "I've reviewed your documents, and while the warehouse itself may be grandfathered in, your current use of it is not compliant with community standards." I raised an eyebrow. What the hell does that mean? She flipped through her ridiculously thick binder and tapped her manicured nail on a page. "Your property falls under the Redwood Hills aesthetic guidelines. A warehouse functioning as a workshop and office disrupts the community's harmony. I'll need to inspect the interior for compliance." I crossed my arms. "No, you won't." Her fake smile twitched. "Michael, refusing an inspection could be seen as non-cooperation, and I'd hate to escalate this matter." There it was, the threat. I wanted to laugh in her face. I stepped closer, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Linda, my property line starts 50 feet behind where we're standing. My warehouse is another 200 yards back. No one in this damn neighborhood can even see it. So tell me, how exactly is it affecting community harmony?" She sniffed, eyes narrowing. "It's about principle. Regardless of visibility, all structures must adhere to our guidelines." I tilted my head. "And what happens if I tell you to get off my property?" Her lips curled into a sickly sweet smirk. "Then I'll have no choice but to escalate it." I slammed the door in her face. From that moment on, Linda made it her personal mission to make my life hell. I got a violation notice claiming my grass was half an inch too tall, even though I measured it myself, and it was within HOA regulations. Another fine arrived for unauthorized vegetation because I planted wildflowers in my backyard. Yes, wildflowers. 1 week, she even tried to cite me for noise violations, despite the fact that my nearest neighbor was a quarter-mile away and I rarely used heavy equipment at night. Every time, I responded with documented proof that I was in compliance. Every time, she got more aggressive. Then came the final straw. One afternoon, I was working on a complex metal framework for a custom car design when my doorbell rang, over and over again like a damn fire alarm. I opened the door to find Linda and 3 other HOA board members standing there, all wearing matching embroidered polo shirts, looking like some kind of cult. Before I could say anything, Linda marched right past me into my house. "Good news, Michael," she chirped, like she hadn't been terrorizing me for months. "The board has decided to grant you an exemption for your warehouse." I folded my arms. Exemption from what? I haven't violated a single rule. She waved a dismissive hand. "Small details. Anyway, in exchange, we'd like to use your warehouse for our annual summer gala." I blinked. "Wait, you want to use my private workshop for your community party?" Her fake smile didn't waver. "It's for the good of the neighborhood, Michael. It would mean so much to everyone if you contributed to the community spirit." I allowed a sharp laugh. "Oh, so let me get this straight. You spent months harassing me, fining me, and trying to control MY property, and now you want me to hand over my workshop for a party." Her expression darkened. "Michael, refusing to cooperate with the HOA could have consequences. Surely, you wouldn't want any more issues with your property, would you?" I was done. I stared at her, voice ice cold. "Linda, get out of my house." Her eyes flashed with fury. "You'll regret this." As she stormed out, I knew one thing for sure. This war was just beginning. The morning after I kicked Linda Spencer out of my house, I woke up feeling almost victorious. I had stood my ground, refused to be bullied, and sent her packing. I should have known better. People like her don't take no for an answer. By noon, my email inbox was flooded with violation notices from the HOA enforcement team, which, let's be honest, was just Linda sitting in her overpriced SUV, writing up fake complaints. Grass exceeding HOA height limit. Unauthorized use of property for commercial purposes. Noise disturbances reported by multiple residents. Then, the kicker, failure to comply with HOA requests will result in escalating penalties, including legal action. Legal action? For what? Existing. My blood boiled. This was no longer a petty HOA dispute. This was war. I wasn't about to let some power-tripping suburban dictator bulldoze me with her nonsense. I called up my old college buddy, Jason Tucker, now a real estate attorney specializing in HOA disputes. When I told him everything, he burst out laughing. "Jesus, Mike, sounds like you got yourself a classic HOA psycho. This is straight-up harassment. She's bluffing, but you need to shut her down before she gets bolder." Jason had me forward every email, notice, and letter Linda had sent. Within an hour, he drafted a formal cease and desist letter, warning her that she had no legal basis to demand access to my property. Any further harassment would be met with legal action against her in the HOA. Retaliation for denying her request could be considered abuse of power and fraud. I printed out 5 copies, one for Linda, one for each HOA board member, and one for myself, just so I could stare at it and remind myself that I wasn't going to let this woman walk all over me. I hand-delivered them that evening. Linda wasn't home, so I left hers in her mailbox, right on top of a stack of other HOA complaints she had probably written that day. For a few days, I thought maybe, just maybe, she got the message. Then, one morning, I walked outside to find a bright orange sign staked into my lawn. Notice of property violation. This property is subject to HOA compliance review. All modifications and structures must be approved by the board. Failure to comply will result in fines and potential legal action. Oh, hell no. I ripped that sign out of the ground and marched straight to Linda's house. She opened the door with that smug look, pretending like she wasn't expecting me. "Michael, to what do I owe the pleasure?" I held up the sign. "Explain this." She tilted her head, playing dumb. "Oh, that. Routine compliance notice. Just ensuring all properties meet the neighborhood's high standards." I clenched my jaw. "Linda, I have done nothing wrong. You're making up violations because I didn't let you use my property for your little HOA circus." Her fake smile widened. "Michael, refusing to follow HOA regulations could result in unpleasant consequences. I suggest you start cooperating." I laughed in her face. You mean stop resisting your bullshit power trip? Her eyes narrowed. Watch yourself, Michael. I'd hate for things to get messy. That was it. I was done. The very next day, an email landed in my inbox. Subject: Notice of emergency, HOA meeting, board decision passed. I skimmed through it, and my jaw nearly hit the damn floor. According to the email, the HOA board had held a secret emergency meeting without notifying residents, which was illegal, by the way, and had passed a resolution that my warehouse was now considered part of a community easement zone. In normal human language, they were claiming my warehouse was now part of public HOA property and could be used for community purposes. Linda had literally tried to steal my land. Attached was a fake-ass property map they had clearly edited in Microsoft Paint, where they had redrawn my property lines to conveniently place my warehouse inside HOA-controlled land. I stared at the screen, absolutely seething. This was straight-up fraud. I called Jason so fast, I nearly broke my phone. Jason, these psychos just tried to steal my property. He cursed under his breath. Send me everything. Now, an hour later, Jason sent back another brutal legal letter, stating that the HOA had no authority to change property lines. Their vote was completely illegal, violating multiple HOA bylaws. Filing false property claims could get them sued into oblivion. He also drafted a separate letter to the city property office, officially challenging the fraudulent map change. I personally hand-delivered copies of Jason's letter to every single board member that night. Linda wasn't home again, so I taped her copy to her damn front door. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of car doors slamming shut outside. I looked out the window and nearly lost my damn mind. There were 3 cars parked by my warehouse. A group of HOA members, including Linda, were unloading boxes, decorations, and setting up tables. I stormed outside. What the hell do you think you're doing? Linda turned to me with a victorious smirk. Michael, so glad you're here. We're setting up for the gala. Didn't you get the notice? I took a deep, shaky breath, trying not to strangle this woman on my own lawn. Linda, you are trespassing. You are illegally entering my property. You are breaking the law. She laughed. Oh, Michael, don't be so dramatic. The board voted, and we now have community access to this space. It's in the new property map. My hands were shaking with rage. Linda, that map is fake. That vote was illegal, and you are leaving. Now. She snapped her fingers, signaling for her lackeys to keep setting up. Michael, you're being difficult. The police will just side with the HOA, so why don't you save yourself the trouble? I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Her smirk faded instantly. Who are you calling? I grinned coldly. The police. Let's find out whose side they're really on. And just like that, her face lost all color. The war had just reached its peak, and I was about to end it. As I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, watching Linda and her army of HOA minions invade my property, I felt pure, unfiltered rage. Linda had the guts to smirk, arms crossed like she was some kind of queen ruling over her peasants. Michael, this is pointless, she sneered. The police always side with the HOA. You're just embarrassing yourself. I stared at her deadpan and raised my phone. Then you won't mind if I embarrass myself a little more. By the time I finished giving 911 my address and the words trespassing in progress left my mouth, Linda's smirk twitched. Her little minions, who had been so eager to start decorating my warehouse like it was some damn country club, were starting to look uncomfortable. Good. Be uncomfortable. You should be. 15 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up. The officer stepped out. Officer Rodriguez, a guy I'd seen once or twice at community safety meetings. Solid guy. Not the type to fall for HOA bullshit. He walked up to me first. Mr. Carter, we got a call about trespassers. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice level but icy. Yes, these people are on my property. They refuse to leave. They even broke into my warehouse with a stolen key. Linda, the walking migraine, stepped forward before I could finish. Officer, this is just a misunderstanding. The HOA has community easement rights to this structure. We're preparing for our annual gala, which Michael, as a resident, is welcome to attend. I snorted. Oh yeah? Did you also mention how you illegally tried to change my property lines? Or how you copied my warehouse key without my permission? Rodriguez's brow furrowed. You copied his key? Of course not. Linda lied so fast it nearly gave me whiplash. I whipped out my phone, pulled up the cease and desist letter from my lawyer, and handed it to Rodriguez. This was delivered to the HOA 3 days ago. They ignored it. They're trespassing. I want them gone. Rodriguez read it, then turned back to Linda. Ma'am, I don't see any legal documentation supporting your claims. Unless you have a court order, this is private property. If Mr. Carter wants you off, you leave. And just like that, Linda's fake composure shattered. Her face turned an alarming shade of red, and her voice shot up an octave. This is absurd. We are the HOA. We make the rules. The police have always sided with us before. Rodriguez raised an unimpressed eyebrow. Ma'am, the law doesn't care about your HOA rules. The deed is in his name. This is his land. Linda's eye twitched so hard I thought she was about to spontaneously combust. Her minions? Oh, they were already backing away, pretending like they had nothing to do with this mess. This isn't over. Linda shrieked. You're ruining everything. Rodriguez crossed his arms. It is over, ma'am. Unless you want to be arrested for trespassing. That did it. Linda whipped around, barking orders at her followers like some kind of deranged cult leader. Pack it up. Now, as they scrambled to undo their mess, I just stood there, arms crossed, watching the HOA's little empire crumble. After an hour of sulking and shoving decorations back into their cars, Linda and her goons finally left. Rodriguez gave me some solid advice. Change my locks. Immediately. Get a security system. Keep an eye out for more HOA nonsense. I thanked him, and that night, I had a locksmith replace every damn lock on my property. I even installed security cameras. No way in hell was I going to let them pull this stunt again. The next morning, I was in my office, finally getting some actual work done, when my phone pinged with an alert from my security camera. I looked at the screen, and my jaw dropped. Linda was back, with a team of caterers, pounding on my warehouse door. I marched outside, phone in hand, recording everything. Linda, what the hell are you doing? She whipped around, looking absolutely deranged. You changed the locks. I grinned. Damn right I did. This is MY property. I secured it. You know, like normal people do when they're being harassed by trespassers. Her eyes practically bugged out her skull. You have no right to do this. The gala is today. We have no other venue. I shrugged. Not my problem. One of the caterers awkwardly cleared his throat. Miss Spencer, we really need to know where to set up. The ice sculptures are melting. Linda ignored him. She stepped closer, jabbing a finger in my chest. You think you've won? You think you could have shut me down? I will make your life hell. I pulled out a business card from my pocket. This is Officer Rodriguez's number. Wanted to call him back. I'm sure he'd love to hear how you're still harassing me after yesterday. The caterer stepped in again, looking more panicked. Miss Spencer, seriously, we have 4 other events today. For a brief, glorious moment, I thought Linda was about to explode into flames right in front of me. Instead, she did something even better. She turned to the caterer, practically snarling. Set up in the street. The guy blinked. The street. Yes. Block off the road. I don't care. Oh, this was going to be good. As Linda stormed off, barking in her phone, I went back inside, grabbed a cold beer, and pulled up my security feed. Within the hour, the cops were back. Turns out, blocking a public road without a permit? Yeah, that's illegal. I watched as the police shut down the entire event. Guests were arguing, people were leaving, and Linda was losing her damn mind. And the best part? It wasn't over yet. The HOA was about to turn on her. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. The gala from hell was supposed to be the pinnacle of Linda's HOA reign, a grand event proving her control over the neighborhood. Instead, the cops shut it down within an hour. The guests were furious after being redirected to a random street corner like they were attending a hobo convention. Several homeowners, whose driveways were blocked, called the city authorities. The caterers left in a huff, probably adding Linda to some industry-wide blacklist for insane clients. By the time the last folding chair was thrown into a truck, Linda Spencer's reputation was in flames. And I sat on my porch, drinking a beer, watching it all unfold like the season finale of a damn soap opera. But then, something unexpected happened. HOA Treasurer Jim knocked on my door. I opened the door, fully expecting another bullshit HOA complaint. But Jim, he looked nervous as hell, like a guy about to snitch on the mafia. Michael, I need to apologize. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. For what? Enabling a lunatic for the past year. He winced. Look, I didn't know Linda was this bad. She told us she had permission for the warehouse. She said the gala was all arranged. I snorted. And you just blindly believed her? Without checking. Jim ran a hand through his graying hair, looking genuinely stressed. A lot of us did. But after today, we're holding an emergency HOA meeting tomorrow. We need to talk about her leadership or lack of it. Now that got my attention. So what? You guys finally growing spines. Jim sighed. We just need you to come. Tell the board what she's done. The fraud, the trespassing, the illegal key copying. I pretended to think about it for a second, then shrugged. Oh, you don't have to ask me twice. I'll be there. Jim nodded and left, looking like a man who had just realized he worked for a damn supervillain. The next morning, I walked into the HOA clubhouse conference room, and the energy was different. Usually, HOA meetings were just boring old people arguing about fences, but today, people looked pissed. Even some of Linda's former allies were sitting far away from her, whispering to each other. And Linda herself? She was late, probably plotting her next dictatorship move in the parking lot. Finally, she stormed in, looking like she hadn't slept. The moment she saw me, her face twisted into pure hatred. Jim cleared his throat. All right, let's begin. We have serious allegations against our HOA president. Michael, would you like to start? I stood, pulled out a neatly organized folder, and began ripping her apart. I laid out every violation notice she faked. I showed proof of the fraudulent property map. I presented the cease and desist letter she ignored. I described the trespassing, the stolen key, the police intervention. By the time I finished, the room was dead silent. Linda? Oh, she was shaking with rage. She jumped up so fast her chair toppled over. This is all lies, she shrieked. He's making it sound worse than it is. I was just trying to preserve our community. One of the board members, Susan, a no-nonsense retired lawyer, folded her arms. So preserving the community involves illegally changing property maps, forging documents, breaking into someone's private workspace. Linda's eye twitched so hard I thought she was about to detach a retina. Exceptional circumstances, she shouted. The gala is our most important event. Jim slammed his hand on the table. That's a damn lie, Linda. We found your emails. You canceled our actual venue 2 months ago. You planned this. A murmur rippled through the room. Even the few people who had supported Linda started shifting uncomfortably. Linda was losing control. Then Mark, my lawyer, spoke up for the first time. He leaned forward, adjusting his tie. Linda, let me be very clear. My client has grounds for multiple lawsuits. Not just against you, but against this HOA as an entity. However, he paused for effect, letting the tension build. Michael is willing to reconsider legal action if appropriate measures are taken today. The board looked at each other. Jim took a deep breath. I move that we take an immediate vote of no confidence in Linda Spencer as HOA president, and that she be removed from the board effective immediately. The room froze. Then someone said seconded. And just like that, they voted. It was unanimous. Even her former allies turned on her. Linda stared at them, mouth opening and closing like a damn fish. You can't do this to me, she shrieked. I made this neighborhood what it is. Susan stood. And now you're done. Please turn in your keys, documents, and HOA credentials before you leave. Linda looked around, desperate for anyone to take her side. No one did. She grabbed her purse, knocking over a stack of papers, and stormed out, screaming the whole way. When the door slammed shut behind her, the room stayed silent for a few seconds. Then, someone started clapping, and just like that, the entire room erupted in applause. Jim walked over to me, extending a hand. Michael, we owe you an apology. And a beer. I shook his hand. You owe me a hell of a lot more than that. A week later, Linda moved out of the neighborhood. The new HOA president? Susan. And the first thing she did? Erase every bullshit rule Linda ever wrote. As for me, I got a formal apology from the HOA and the sweet, sweet silence of peace at last. The days after Linda's downfall were strangely quiet. No more stupid violation notices stuffed in my mailbox. No more random HOA creepers snooping around my property looking for infractions. No more bullshit threats about how I was ruining the community. For the first time in over a year, I could actually breathe. But the best part? The entire neighborhood turned on Linda. Her former supporters suddenly had amnesia, acting like they had never cheered her on while she was terrorizing people. Homeowners who had been too scared to speak up were suddenly talking about all the insane things she had done to them. She fined one guy for a bird feeder because it didn't match HOA color schemes. She forced an elderly couple to repaint their door twice because the shade of blue was too aggressive. She even threatened to tow someone's car from their own damn driveway because it was too old and made the neighborhood look bad. It was like the entire HOA had been living under a dictatorship, and now, without their tyrant, they were learning how to function like normal humans again. But I wasn't done yet. A week after Linda was booted from power, Jim and some of the remaining HOA board members showed up at my door. I opened it, arms crossed. What now? You guys want to use my property for a 4th of July parade? Jim held up his hands in surrender. No, Michael. We wanted to formally apologize. For everything. I raised an eyebrow. Everything? That's a pretty long list. He nodded, looking like he had aged 5 years in a week. Yeah, we know. Apparently, the new HOA leadership, now under Susan's control, wanted to make things right. All fake violation notices, erased. HOA overreach policies, rewritten. Trespassing incident, documented and added to new rules to prevent future abuse. And then Jim said something that made me pause. We'd also like to refund your HOA fee for the past year, as a gesture of goodwill. I blinked. Wait, you guys are actually giving me my money back. He nodded. It's the least we can do. Now, I could have just taken the check and let it go, but I wasn't feeling particularly forgiving. So instead, I smiled. Actually, I have a better idea. 2 weeks later, the neighborhood newsletter was published. And right on page 2, a full-page section titled, Understanding HOA Abuse, a case study on leadership failure. It was a beautifully written piece, written by me, of course, detailing exactly what happened, listing out every insane thing Linda had done, the trespassing, the illegal key copying, the fake property line scam, and how the HOA was forced to remove her. It ended with a warning. Let this serve as a reminder that no HOA should ever have the power to bully, harass, or steal from homeowners. The moment we stop holding bad leadership accountable, we lose control of our own homes. The best part? I used the refunded HOA fees to pay for the printing. Jim saw it. He winced, but didn't say anything. Linda? She lost her damn mind. About a month after she was kicked out, Linda was officially moving out of the neighborhood. Her house went up for sale, and suddenly, the once queen of the HOA was just another bitter ex-resident packing up her overpriced luxury SUV. But before she left, she had one last pathetic attempt to get the last word. One evening, I got a letter in my mailbox. Handwritten, no return address, but I knew exactly who it was from. It read, Michael, congratulations. You got what you wanted. But don't think for a second that this makes you the hero. You destroyed years of hard work and turned the neighborhood into a joke. You will regret this. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you'll see the damage you've done. Enjoy living in the chaos you created. Linda, I laughed so hard, I almost framed the damn thing. With Linda gone, the neighborhood slowly returned to normal. No more unnecessary fines. No more HOA overreach. No more community spirit being forced down our throats. I went back to working in my warehouse, enjoying my life, and not worrying about some lunatic trying to steal my land. One afternoon, Jim swung by again. Hey, just wanted to check in. You good? I took a deep breath, looking around my quiet, peaceful property. Then I smirked. Yeah, Jim, I think I'm finally good. A few months later, I ran into an old neighbor at a hardware store. We caught up, and then he grinned. Oh, by the way, guess what? Linda tried joining another HOA in her new neighborhood. They rejected her immediately. I burst out laughing. Let me guess. They Googled her name. He nodded. Yep. Turns out, your newsletter article got shared online. Now every HOA in the state knows exactly who she is. I shook my head, grinning. Well. Looks like karma finally did its job. And with that, I walked away, feeling lighter than I had in years. The HOA tyrant was finally dead. And I was free.